Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at someone with financial freedom and quietly thought that is not for people like me? Normal salary, normal life, normal responsibilities. And when you open YouTube or Instagram, someone is telling you that you need 10 crores to retire. Someone else says 20 crore. Nowadays, some people are saying 40 crores. And at some point, you do not feel motivated, you feel defeated. But after my 1.7 crore retirement video, I got hundreds of questions. And almost none of them were asking how much do I need. They were asking something far more honest. Can someone like me actually escape this salary trap at all? And here is the thing nobody tells you. The gap between where you are today and the first stage of financial freedom is almost certainly smaller than you think. And it is not because of crypto luck, not because of magical returns, but because most people are measuring the wrong thing. In the next 10 minutes, I'll show you exactly what I mean. Before we get to the numbers, there is one mistake that makes financial freedom feel mathematically impossible for most people. People confuse their current monthly expenses with what they will actually need in retirement. These are not the same thing. Right now, your 1 lakh monthly expense probably looks like this. 25,000 goes into home loan, 15,000 spent on children, 10,000 car EMI, 50,000 is your actual lifestyle. In retirement, that EMI is gone, the school fees are gone, the car loan is gone. Suddenly, your 1 lakh life is actually a 50,000 life. And that changes everything because the corpus you need to retire on 50,000 a month is less than half the corpus you thought you needed. Financial freedom did not get easier, you are just solving the wrong equation. In my earlier 1.7 crore video, I explained how that corpus could represent the first stage of financial freedom for basic middle class retirement. But today's question is more important and more personal. How do normal salaried people actually get there? Now, let me introduce you to Monty. Monty is not trying to become ultra rich. He has one goal, and honestly, it is the most powerful goal in personal finance: to never beg, borrow, or tolerate nonsense forever. Over the next few minutes, we'll look at Monty at different ages, different incomes, different lifestyles, and watch how freedom quietly becomes possible for each of them. So, case one: Monty is 40 years old. His retirement lifestyle expense is 50,000 per month. Now, before anyone says 50,000 is too low or too high, let me show you exactly what this life actually looks like. So, groceries and food, 25,000. Utilities, gas, internet, and phone, 10,000. Health and term insurance, 5,000. Fuel and medicines, 4,000. Miscellaneous and small comforts, 6,000. Notice what is not in this number. No fancy car EMI, no constant lifestyle upgrades, no comparison driven spending. This is not luxury, but it is not struggle either. This is dignified, comfortable middle class life. Now, here is the question most people never actually sit down and answer. How long does Monty need to work to get there? Not 20 years, not 15 years, not even 10 years. Roughly 6 years. That's right, 6 years. And I want to be clear, I have not used aggressive assumptions here. I've used roughly 10% portfolio returns, not the 12%, 15% that everyone online throws around. These numbers are designed to feel achievable, not magical. Now, here is where most people make a critical mistake. They think they are starting from zero. They are not. Monty has spent years quietly building through EPF, PPF, SIPs, NPS. He already has around 70 lakh accumulated. And here is what that 70 lakh does quietly in the background. At roughly 10% growth, it can become 1.24 crore on its own without Monty investing a single rupee. Now, accounting for inflation over 6 years, that 50,000 lifestyle becomes roughly 67,000. So the required corpus is around 2 crores. The required monthly investment to bridge that gap is around 59,000 with a 12% annual step up. And before 59,000 feels overwhelming, remember two things. One, this includes EPF and NPS contributions. You may already be investing 20,000 or probably 25,000 of that without thinking about it. And two, if you cannot hit this SIP or investment amount, that is perfectly okay. Investing less than ideal does not mean failure. It usually means just a few extra years. That's all. And honestly, this is something I personally experienced too. I reached financial freedom much earlier than I had originally imagined. Now I want you to stop for a second and imagine. Imagine 50,000 per month guaranteed for the rest of your life. How would you show up at work tomorrow? Would you still tolerate the same toxic manager? Would the same layoff threat keep you up at night? Would you accept the same conditions you accept today? Most likely no. That shift, that one internal shift from I have no choice to I have options, that is what financial freedom actually feels like. It does not begin when luxury starts increasing, it begins when fear starts reducing. And that feeling is worth far more than any salary hike you'll ever receive. Now, I want to share one thing that changed my own financial life more than any investment strategy ever did. For years, I assumed financially successful people simply earned more. More income, more freedom, that was the equation. But over time, I've kept seeing something that didn't make sense. High earners, good salaries, real income, but financially fragile. Why? Because every raise had a shadow. Bigger salary meant bigger EMI, bigger car, bigger comparison. I had a colleague once, genuinely impressive salary, nice car, nice apartment, and he used to go on regular holidays. I ran his numbers one evening and found out that his lifestyle was delaying his financial freedom by almost 4 years. 4 years for things he had already stopped noticing. And that was the moment something shifted for me. Focus on being rich, not looking rich. I try to always remember that. I stopped asking, can I afford this? And started asking, does this genuinely improve my family's life? And something interesting happened. My expenses naturally reduced, but the spending on real comfort, health, fleet, and time with family, those kind of expenses, they continue. This is where financial freedom quietly accelerates, not through deprivation, through mental clarity. Case two. Now let's look at a younger Monty, 35 years old, monthly retirement lifestyle 35,000. He has already accumulated around 40 lakhs. That 40 lakhs left alone at 10% growth, that becomes close to 78 lakhs. So his target corpus is roughly 1.6 crores. The required SIP is around 48,000 monthly with yearly increases. And here is where it gets interesting. How long does this Monty take? Roughly 7 years. Most people assume financial freedom is a 25-year project. For this version of Monty, it is 7. The gap between where you are and the first stage of freedom is almost always shorter than the story you've been telling yourself. What is your actual monthly lifestyle number? The one you would genuinely need in retirement. Drop it in the comments. And yes, I do read those. Now let's look at a more comfortable lifestyle. This Monty spends 75,000 per month in retirement at the age of 40. He has accumulated around 90 lakhs. Required corpus is roughly 3.1 crores. That 90 lakh compounding at 10% can become close to 1.7 crore on its own. Required monthly investment is around 78,000 with yearly increases. And even this Monty, the comfortable version, can reach the first stage of financial freedom in roughly 7 years. But here's the thing I want you to notice across all three cases. The 35,000 Monty starts at 35, he reaches financial freedom by 42. The 50,000 Monty starts at 40, he reaches freedom by 46. The 75,000 Monty starts at 40, he reaches financial freedom by 47. Financial freedom is not purely determined by income. It is heavily shaped by what you decide your life actually needs to look like. Every lifestyle upgrade today quietly increases the amount of freedom you need to buy tomorrow. Many people are not financially poor, they are financially exhausted from comparison. One thing that changed my own behavior more than any financial rule was tracking my portfolio every month. Not obsessively, not daily, but regularly enough that I could see the numbers moving. I remember the first time my portfolio crossed 1 CR, nothing changed practically, but something changed psychologically. Because for the first time, I could see the finish line. It wasn't imaginary anymore. When you can see your investments growing month by month, your yearly expenses getting covered by returns, your dependence on salary slowly reducing, financial freedom stops being a concept. It starts being visible. And that visibility is often the only thing standing between someone who stays consistent and someone who quietly gives up. And maybe this is the most important thing I want to leave with you today. Financial freedom does not arrive in one big moment, it arrives in layers. First, an emergency fund that means one bad month doesn't destroy you. Then, investments that start growing in the background. You stop living salary to salary. Then, you see one full year of expenses sitting in your portfolio. Then, the first stage of financial freedom quietly appears. And somewhere in that journey, your psychology changes. Not because life became luxurious, but because helplessness slowly reduces. And I want to be very specific about what this kind of freedom actually feels like. This is not buy a Lamborghini money. This is I can handle a medical emergency without panic money. I don't have to tolerate a toxic boss forever money. My family breathes easier money. Layoffs don't terrify me anymore money. That psychological shift will change you far more than any luxury ever will. So if you are sitting here thinking, I started too late, my salary is too small, this is not possible for someone like me, please hear this. Wealth creation almost always looks boring before it starts looking impressive. Stay consistent, increase your investment rate, and stop letting comparisons steal years from your financial freedom. And I'm genuinely curious about one thing before you go. What would actually change in your life if 50,000 per month were guaranteed tomorrow? Not what you would buy. What would change? Tell me in the comments. I really want to know. And if this video made financial freedom feel even slightly less impossible, that is exactly why I make these. Subscribe if you want more of it. See you in the next one.